Okay, everyone, we're about to get started. If you can find your seats and silence your cell phones if you haven't done so already.
Remember that? He sure did. He sure did.
All righty.
That's the truth.
Good evening, everyone. We are on the record. Today is Monday, the 7th day of March, 2022. This is a City Council Caucus meeting of the Jersey City Municipal Council. We had a scheduled 4 p.m. start. The clock on my cell phone is showing 4:02 p.m. May we have a roll call for the commencement of this caucus? Councilperson Ridley is not here. Councilperson Prinzeri.
Here.
Councilperson Baggiano.
Here.
Councilperson Saleh.
Here.
Councilperson Solomon.
Here.
Councilperson Gilmore.
Here.
Councilperson DeGise.
Here.
Councilperson Rivera.
Here.
And Council President Waterman.
Here.
We have 8 council members in attendance at 4:02 p.m. On behalf of Council President Waterman, in accordance with New Jersey Public Laws of 1975, Chapter 231, the Open Public Meetings Act, also known as the Sunshine Law, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the posting on the bulletin board of the first floor of City Hall, the annual notice, which is the schedule of meetings and caucuses of the Municipal Council for the calendar year 2022, and filed in the office of the City Clerk on Thursday, October 28th, 2021. In addition, at its time of its preparation, the agenda of this meeting was similarly disseminated on Friday, March 4th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. to the Municipal Council, Mayor, Business Administrator, Corporation Council, and in local newspapers, and posted on the city's website, so I can certify as to our total compliance with the Sunshine Law. Council President, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Sean. Director Shea, number 1.
Good morning, ma'am, members of the council. Evening, sorry. I have file number 22196, a resolution ratifying a contract award to Ring Power Corporation for the purchase and delivery of a Rook Tactical Solution vehicle for the Department of Public Safety Division of Office of Emergency Management. This is an emergency grant only because only one company makes this item. It has to be purchased from them. It's a proprietary item. And it is what it is it is a platform based on a small tracked forklift type vehicle that provides protection and shielding to officers and negotiators while they're doing observations, rescues, negotiations, de-escalation tactics. It has no, I'll answer some of the questions I can anticipate coming. It has no offensive capabilities. It's not a weapon, it's a shield. The purpose of using it is to allow us to approach dangerous situations with our officers under protection so that they don't have to use force to protect themselves if they're suddenly attacked. It gives them an opportunity to approach and to retreat if necessary without having to use force. There's only one in the area. New York City has one. So we applied to the Urban Area Security Initiative, which is our regional initiative, to provide the funding for it. The federal government agreed to provide the funding. As part of that, it would be available to our partners in the Urban Area Security Initiative as well as to us, so that we don't duplicate expensive pieces of machinery.
Any questions, Council?
Can this ever be deployed against protesters, or what other capabilities does it have other than, just shielding a officer in an active shooter situation?
To answer part A, against protesters, no. I mean, that's everybody I think here, including people who have been involved in protests with me, knows the Jersey City, under your leadership and the mayor's philosophy on protesting and how they will be respected, protesters, and how they'll be protected from traffic and from other dangers while they're exerting their First Amendment rights to protest. We take that very seriously, and I'm very proud of when we had serious protests after the murder of George Floyd. I think people got to see firsthand how seriously we take it and how we handle those protests. So no, an item like this would never, ever, as a matter of policy, be deployed in Jersey City against protesters, and it'd be useless anyway, because all it is, again, is a shield, and protesters aren't trying to harm our officers for the most part.
And would this ever be used in a natural disaster situation to excavate? Or I looked it up and I just saw that there were other capabilities for this device. It's essentially an armored Caterpillar truck, like.
Yeah, it could be, yes, it has a claw attachment for that I know New York has used successfully during house explosions, like gas explosions, to aid our firefighters in searching for victims, because it's smaller. The most important thing for us, and the reason we wanted it once we saw New York's in action, is it's more conducive to our environment. It's small. It can move between parked cars. It can move on sidewalks without collapsing the sidewalk. It can raise up to a second floor. For instance, when we had someone threatening a baby, we could have gotten a negotiator closer to him, speaking to him instead of yelling, up at him. So it's conducive for our environment, but the short answer is yes, it can be used in rescue capabilities. That's why it would be housed at OEM, because the OEM director would be the one responsible for assigning it out.
No further questions for me.
So,
Director,
Go ahead.
to clarify, this is being paid for by the UASI grant and not taxpayer dollars?
Yes, it's the federal government is providing the funds through that targeted grant for this region. So if someone else had one, they wouldn't have given it to us, but they're providing it the complete and total funding for it. And as a result, as I said, it's ours, but we would make it available to any of the other members of that UASI region if they needed it.
And this is a restrictive grant, so it can only be used for Homeland Security and things related to Homeland Security.
This can only be used specifically for this item. It's been approved down in Washington, D.C. to purchase this item for this area.
Any more questions?
no,
All right. Thank you, Director.
Sorry,
Okay, go ahead, James.
Director,
Wait, Director.
could you provide us just an overview, not at this moment, but before Wednesday, of how much is in the UASI grant and what we've spent it on in 2020 and 2021?
Yeah, and I should have mentioned that, thank you for that, Kat. This is 2020 funding that has been, because of COVID, delayed. This was approved back then. Greg, you want to?
Just a question again, Councilman, please.
Sure, I just wondering, could you guys just provide us with the breakdown of everything we've purchased for the UASI grant in 2020 and 2021, and just how much money is in that grant?
The grant starts at a base of $1.5 million, and that's to the two core cities, Jersey City and Newark being a core city. Yep. And then there's 7 contiguous counties. The contiguous counties get a breakdown of $250,000 per. In our case, the 2 years that we've got, that you're questioning, CCTV cameras, additional training, numerous types of equipment. Bear in mind is that the grant that we used in 2018 and 2019 pretty much covered all of our COVID expenses as far as PPE. So the main thing with the grant, it's that it's prepare for and respond to, and it's consistent with the 7 counties: Hudsonburg and Essex, Union, Morris, and Middlesex. And what we do is put as the director alluded to, the equipment in place, so if it is needed, it can be deployed to any place throughout those UASI region. We are number 7 out of 11 Tier 1 UASIs in the country.
Got it. That's helpful. If you could provide us in writing so we know the expenditures is how much money, but that was helpful.
Yeah, and just so you know, too, we're answerable to the SAA, which in our case is Office of Homeland Security Preparedness. So every project that we participate in has to be previously approved. We're in the 22 cycle now for grant allocations.
Great.
A large portion of this grant also funded our CCTV upgrades.
Okay, thank you. And then the final question for me is just, Director, you mentioned a couple examples, but can you just sort of walk us through what are the, in the last 3 to 5 years, what are the specific incidents where we would have used this ROOK in Jersey City?
We would have used it on the December 10th, 2019 case. God rest people we lost there. We would have used it on the case of the gentleman who was threatening the life of the infant from a second store thing. We would have used it 2 weeks ago when we had a gentleman in a second floor who was trying to rip out gas lines and set fire to a building, emotionally disturbed. We would have used it a couple months ago when we had the barricaded suspect in a car claiming he had a firearm that we had to spend about 4 hours talking. We could have gotten our negotiators closer to him. That's just off that, we would have used it in another case of a mentally ill gentleman who wanted, we believe, us to harm him, like a suicide by cop type of scenario where he claimed that he had stabbed someone who was bleeding to death in his house and that we had to kill him to get to them to save him. We would have been able to come right up to the window and look in and determine that there was no victim there. Instead, we had to spend some very harrowing time doing investigations, wondering if we needed to go in and rescue somebody or if we could take the time to help him, who was clearly mentally disturbed. So those are the kind of incidents just off the top of my head. So anytime there's a hostage barricade, which unfortunately and fortunately, we have more of them because our officers are more attuned to de-escalation. So we have more of those incidents all the time.
Anyone else?
I do have, well, I'll speak to you further on, but I do just want to know who's going to be in charge of authorizing when it's necessary to utilize this vehicle?
It's a good question. So tactical situations are under the command of if it first happens out in the street, at all times we try to have a deputy chief that's in charge of the city. It's called the city command chief. So that deputy chief would be in charge of authorizing additional items such as this for the emergency service team. So our tactical emergency service officers would ask that it be deployed, and the deputy chief would then be in charge of approving and requesting it. And then Greg in the Office of Emergency Management is our kind of safety valve on that, because all the equipment at emergency management is deployed by him. So it'd go through those chains up to now. If there's time, that chief might be relieved by Deputy Chief Flora, who's the executive officer reporting directly to Director Moody, and he would make that decision. But there'll always be at least a city commander, and then sometimes they'll be higher.
Okay. All right, then. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Director Pierce?
I'm sorry, Director, just before you start, it's Sean.
Hey, Sean.
How are you? Just for the record, I just want to record Councilperson Ridley present at 4:07 p.m. So we now have all 9 council members present at 4:07 p.m. Go ahead, Director.
Hey, Sean, thank you. Good evening, President Warder and members of the council. I'm here to speak on Resolution 22-203-1025. That's a award of a contract to W.B. Mason under the New Jersey State Contract for the purchase and delivery of copy paper citywide. The total contract amount is $120,000. W.B. Mason, there's been shortages on paper throughout systemically. Actually, John Lynch is here tonight also from Administrative Services. We had discussed this in depth because they have the largest capacity to be able to supply it. We all know how much paper we use on a daily basis.
Would this be more than enough that we need? Like, what's the, how long do you expect this paper supply to last? And just because I hear of paper shortages across the city.
John, could you comment on that?
But I definitely would like for it to be, enough for at least this year and into next year.
Well, WB Mason is one of the largest suppliers out there. We will have no shortage of paper from them. We looked at other vendors, but once we realized that let's just go with the largest out there to assure us that we can have all the paper we need for now, all the way through the years to come.
So this would at least supply us for the rest of the year, or?
And going forward.
Okay, great. That's all.
Anyone else? Next one, Director.
The next one is 22-204, 10.26, and this will award a contract to Campbell Fire Protection to perform emergency repair work to the Emergency Communication Center at Bishop Street. What we had was an issue arose where the system that protects the servers went down, and we had to have them come in to do a quick repair, and it was determined then that they needs extensive repairs. So that's why the need for an emergency contract.
Questions? Next one, Director.
Next one is 22205, 1027. This will authorize the award of a contract to Advance Furnace and Air Duct Cleaning for cleaning services at the Jersey City Municipal Court Complex. That basically, they will come in, replace filters and any other type of air cleaning devices that are necessary. That's for the whole Justice Building on Summit Avenue.
Can we also look into having them clean 15 Bishop Street where the dispatch office is?
That's
Part
yeah.
of it, or?
For air duct cleaning and things like that?
Yes.
Right. No problem, Councilman. We'll have
Thank
them
you,
look
just because I've heard,
They may already have a contract, but I'll have it checked.
thank you so much, Director.
Final resolution is 22209, 1031. And this resolution authorizes the acceptance of a grant from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection in the amount of $324,964.11. And this will enhance the city's efforts related to recycling, education, and associated equipment.
Any questions? That's it. Thank you, Director.
Thank you very much.
Matt from HR.
Good afternoon. Matt Hogan, Risk Management. I have two resolutions, both are amendments. 10.32, it's Resolution 22-210 for Leitner, Torte, Fazio, and Browse. It's a workers' comp defense counsel contract. They exceeded the original allotment, and the increase is $19,000 to cover the claims that they closed.
You said they exceeded the original amount?
Yes, we have 4 different defense counsel firms. We do a contract for $50,000. Sometimes they don't spend that much. Sometimes if they close more cases, we pay them per case, per claim. So there's a cap of $3,000. So normally it's in that $50,000 range, but the cases can close at different rates. So,
So based on the first contract that we assessed at one particular amount, service need to be rendered to increase that amount to the tune of $19,000?
correct. Originally, they closed about 21 claims, used up $49,000 of the original contract. At the end of the year, in court, they closed another 8 claims. So they exceeded.
Each claim is a different time frame and different litigation, or is it like standard? So is it fair to say that if in the previous years it cost us, let's say $50,000 to settle 20 claims, is it fair to assume that the following year that same calculation would take place, or is it different because of the metrics?
It would be different based on the number of claims that settle. Yeah, the cost per claim averages just about the same each year. It's the number of claims that close each year. It depends on treatment and negotiations. Litigation can be protracted to some claims. So the number of claims that settle in a year is not set.
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next one.
It's 10.33. It's Resolution 22-211. It's the same idea. It's an amendment for Netcher, Deneen, and Hillman. They handle workers' comp claims within Hudson County.
Questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Bernadette? Oh, Matt, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here for number 1013, Resolution 22-191. It's a resolution authorizing an agreement with Network Management Solutions for the support of our proprietary computer network hardware and software.
Go ahead and explain. Go ahead.
Yeah, the company is a certified small business. They've been providing our, if you will, second or third level support for our network for some period of time now. They do a great job. This past weekend, as an example, Linden Avenue, we had electrical issues, and they were a phone call away and helped us resolve the problems.
This company had anything to do with our W-2s? I'm just kidding.
No, ma'am.
No, Bernadette, no, it had nothing to do with it. No, okay. Go ahead, James.
Director, it says for proprietary computer network software. What's the kind of proprietary software that we have?
It's a proprietary combination of hardware. It's what we use for our network and it's our security, our firewall, and our web filtering, and all the different pieces and parts that secure our network.
Okay.
Is there annual cybersecurity training for all Jersey City employees to ensure, that this also, not that we're just relying on them, but we're also educating everybody? Is that something that happens?
We have some that we have negotiated with it's outside of this particular contract. It's with an organization called SANS. We've not really successfully rolled it out yet to everyone, but we are looking forward to doing that in the next month or two.
Just because it is, it is super critical.
Sir.
Anyone else? Next one, Bernadette.
Okay, I'm also here for number 1014, Resolution 22-192, and it's partner Resolution 1015, Item 22-193. These are essentially the same, except that we're using different auction houses. Because IT has the ability to kind of divide our goods that we have, it's a good opportunity for the city to test and see which one of these auction solutions provides the best deal to the city. So we actually have two resolutions, and we're dividing our equipment into two batches, one for each of the different companies.
How do we have any policy to determine how do things end up on an auction block?
Yes, sir. We work very closely with the purchasing agent. We assess the value. Honestly, we use our computer equipment until it is pretty much worthless. So these people are buying them usually for spare parts. Sometimes they're buying them to dismantle them and use the precious metals inside and melt them down. You get enough of a volume at some point, there's value there.
I understand that, but I want to know if, as a city or as a department, do we have a written policy where we can look and say, because of 1, 2, 3, it's deemed not usable by the city, or will cost us more to utilize it versus replacing it? Is there a written policy to determine that, or is it a matter of discretion?
I believe it's a matter of discretion. Like I said, I work really closely with the purchasing agent, and we assess from an IT perspective whether or not it's worth it to do that, and I believe they just use our judgment as far as whether or not we should continue to maintain different equipment. It really is difficult to make a blanket policy for everything IT because different things have different lifespans. Some of our equipment lasts 10, 15 years, and some of it only lasts 5.
So it would be difficult to put a policy in place, you're saying?
I think a blanket policy would be difficult. We could put something together.
Not a blanket policy, just a policy based on itemized policy saying this particular instrument is deemed not usable because of X, Y, and Z, just so that we're not just getting rid of stuff for the sake of having someone else purchase that stuff, and just to make sure that we get the best bang for our buck, getting the utilization out of the equipment that we're paying for.
I can forward you the policy that David Diaz in the Business Administrator's Office came up with when we were, if you will, codifying how we were going to proceed with these auctions. I think maybe that will, provide the information that you're looking for.
Yes, because I remember working in recreation, and we got rid of like 3,000 jerseys because that director name wasn't there. Like we couldn't have just crossed it out or something. And that's taxpayers' money at the end of the day. So we just want to make sure we're being as responsible as possible.
Absolutely. I'll forward you that has that guidance, and if that's not satisfactory, we'll work with you on something else.
Thank you.
Bernadette, in your experience with IT in the city, is it that we're not replacing them soon enough, or like when it comes to computers, because, with Moore's Law, every 2 years, the amount of circuitry and capacity typically doubles. Like, is your experience we hold on to technology too long?
I don't know that I would say we hold on to it too long. Usually the way we've been approaching it is we take 20% of our inventory at the sort of big picture level, and that's what we replace every year. So we're on a cycle to replace all of the equipment every 5 years. What happens is the people that are, if you will, the heaviest computer users, we try to replace their computer every 2 to 3 years, because as you've pointed out, that would be about when they would find their computer being slow or not responsive. But we do have different levels of, if you will, intensity in users across the city, and so some people need that higher computing power, and some people can deal with a lower level of computing power. They just don't put as much demand on the computers. And so what we do is we take those computers that are only 2 years old, we clean them up, recycle them, and move them down, so that for the price of one new computer, we've actually given 2 new computers, new to the person, so that we're constantly kind of refreshing. So by the end of the 5 years, that computer has been through 2 or perhaps even 3 people before it's deemed no longer useful. And we keep a supply of them on hand for last minute, new staff, some emergency here or there, so we do have some, but we've really been in a mode to try to keep ourselves lean and mean and not let the things pile up. So we've been in the process of getting rid of some of these old things, and some of these things are way beyond their useful life.
And regarding this resolution itself, we're auctioning off what seems to be computers on here. What's the protocol for when they get auctioned off? As in, are you wiping the drives clean to ensure there's no material information or sensitive personal information or city information that, basically around those parameters?
We've actually removed the hard drives from these, so they are being given out without hard drives, and we'll go through a shredding process for the hard drives separately.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernadette. You did 15 also, right?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. They were identical, just 2 different auction houses.
Megan? HHS?
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Ed Cho, Acting Director of Food and Nutrition Division, and we are here for Resolution 22-201 for authorizing the submission of application for the Jersey City Summer Food Program for the calendar year 2022. I'm here with Morgan Span, Supervisor of Summer Meal Program.
Good afternoon. The Division of Food and Nutrition has a vision for a healthy food access that's a summer food service program only strengthens. The City of Jersey City is one of the largest and strongest sponsors in the state of New Jersey, having had 52 sites last year and serving over 120,000 breakfast and lunch meals from June 28th through August 27th. During the height of the program, which was about a month and a week, about 2,000 children were served breakfast and lunch meals a day. We would greatly appreciate the opportunity to combat food insecurity and serve the children of the city again this summer from July 5th through September 2nd. The Summer Meals Program is a federally funded program that reimburses local sponsor sites like us, so we do get all the money back.
Any question, Council, on the summer food program?
Does this resolution, this is just for the submission of the application. Does the application have any specific vendors that it's recommending, or it's just a general application with no specific vendor that's being identified for the summer food program?
So this is just to submit the application. After this, we do have to go to bid. The state has a list of state-approved vendors that we would have to choose from. And Ed could speak more about that process.
As soon as we get the approval from Council, we are authorized to bid this program out to the authorized vendors state choose to do so.
And is this essentially lowest bid wins?
That is correct.
Is that irrespective of complaints that we've received in the past regarding the summer food program? Am I mixing the two up with the summer food program and the summer camps? Are they the same?
So the summer camp is different, but we do partner together. So the food that they received was from the summer food program. I know what you're going to ask next. So yes, there were a lot of complaints last summer from the vendor Red Rabbit. However, they will not be back this year, which is why we're going to bid.
Appreciate that. No further questions.
Thank you. Come on, Joan.
Good evening, Council. I have two very simple resolutions. The first one is 22183, 10.5. It's a resolution authorizing the City of Jersey City to accept a gift from Sandra Bolden Cunningham. Sandy got a real expensive exercise bike. She used it once, and she hasn't used it again, so she wants to get rid of it, so she's just going to donate it. It's only been used once, so she's going to donate it to Maureen Collier Senior Center. It has a value of $1,000.
Yes, we just request that she donate more.
I'm sorry.
We're requesting that she donate more bikes.
You want more bikes? Okay. I'm just laughing because she wanted that bike for so long and couldn't put it together, so she gave up. Okay, the other one is Resolution 22199, 1021, resolution authorizing the Jersey City Department of Health and Human Services to accept grants from the New Jersey Department of Health for the 2022 Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. I'm Councilwoman DeGise and Councilman Gilmore. You might not know, but the seniors get farmers vouchers for the farmers market every year. We get 2,000 to 3,000 eligible seniors get $30 to be used at any farmers market in the state. It goes by income, first come only. When we get the applications, we'll be glad to share them with you. And we keep a whole record, so they only get one because people used to go to 4 different places. We do this, and since it's so much work, they give us $2,500 for administrative costs, which we use for all of the office supplies for this.
Is this something that seniors have to reapply to every year?
Yes. This is run by the state. We have the applications. We have hundreds of applications. They always start us off with $2,000 to $2,500, and we always get more. So as soon as we get them, I'll be happy to send them to everybody.
Is this a link, or do we go to the senior homes? Because, maybe some seniors don't have internet.
They all
access.
know about it. Seniors with the word of mouth. They all know from the years before. We get hundreds from a lot of the senior housing. We get the ethnic groups, the block association groups. A lot of them are the individuals that will call up, and we'll have them available at our site. And if you will have some, we can have some downstairs at City Hall, we'll give them to you. And they all just have to come up because the first year, one person would apply for them from their church, from their senior center, from their housing site. So we keep good records to try to make sure that everybody gets to use them.
That's very true. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Joan,
Joan.
I just want to thank you for all you do for the seniors. They praise you quite a bit.
Thank you, Rich.
Good job.
Appreciate it.
McNair, Employees Benefit Division.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Khadija McNair. I'm here on behalf of Employee Benefits Division. I have one resolution, 22-194, 10-16. This is a resolution authorizing the renewal of a contract with Brown & Brown Metro LLC as an extraordinary unspecifiable service to provide the City of Jersey City with insurance consulting services and to be the city's broker of record for obtaining and maintaining the city's dental benefits. It is a one-year contract in the amount of $60,000. And for those of you who don't know, Brown & Brown, they're a third-party vendor for the city. They provide services like marketing services. Every year, they market the dental program to ensure that the city is getting the most value of the plan. They work directly with Horizon, Blue Cross Blue Shield, to put strategies together to ensure that Horizon is not billing for members that should not be covered. They also communicate with the P&A Group, which is another third-party vendor who handles the COBRA information for, retiree billing as well. And they provide us with most up-to-date information every year on open enrollment.
Any questions, council? Next one. You have two or one?
Just one.
Because it says 10.17, that's not you?
We changed it. We had to pull it. Yeah.
That's her? No, just one? Okay. Thank you. Oh, boy. Rodney. Such a design. Yeah.
Good evening, City Council members. I'm here before you with two resolutions. The first one is 22-185, 10.7, discharge of mortgage for property 35961 Johnston Avenue. The homeowner executed a mortgage with the city in 1992 with a 20-year restriction, which required the owner to occupy that property for 20 years. They have met that requirement under the mortgage obligation. In addition, they also submitted a recapture fee of $55,508 to the city. So they have fully met the obligations under their 1992 mortgage, so we're requesting an actual discharge.
Right, you said, can you say that again? The recapture fee of
$55,508.
Okay. So, Rodney, and just familiarize me with the process because I understand it a little. So essentially, when a second mortgage is taken out, it's for the stipulation of the stay of the residence, correct?
Right.
So when you remove that stipulation, is essentially they're just dealing with the first mortgage holder. So you're not concerned, or we're not concerned necessarily if the individual is in delinquent, if the individual mortgage is in default or anything like that?
During the restricted period, absolutely we're concerned because our funding would be, in jeopardy.
So they have to solidify the first requirements before we release them from anything?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Next one, Rodney.
Second resolution is 22-188, 10.10. This is a mortgage subordination request. The particular developer in 2013 executed a second mortgage with the city under NJDCA NSP program with 20-year restricted period. In 2013, they also executed a mortgage under the HUD NSP program. The owner is now refinancing these properties because their acquisition and construction financing is maturing. So they're seeking to get permanent financing on the properties with Valley National Bank. The property appraised for $1.5 million. Their new mortgage is $490,000. If you add up the total NSP funding, it's $721,000 plus the new first mortgage of $490,000. Total debt on the property is $1.2 million. It appraised for $1.5 million. So debt to equity is 80%, so we have the 20% equity that we normally look for in the property, which means it's viable.
Yeah. Any questions? Thank you, Rodney.
Okay, thank you.
Carmen.
Good evening, council members. I'm here for ordinance, actually. 3.6. It's a ordinance reappropriating about $11 million of unused capital funds.
Okay. 3.6.
Any questions on it?
Yeah,
Sure.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So we're reappropriating, if you look at the ordinance, we're reappropriating older balances and accounts that we've had in our city's budget. About 1.9 million of it is through canceled POs. The other remaining items are open balances with no recent activities.
so it's in total, it's 11 million, correct?
About, yep.
So what are we gonna use that money for now?
So in a sense, what we're doing is that we're consolidating and reappropriating the funds into one kind of sort of capital account so that we can use it for various uses.
So we don't, at this moment, we don't specifically know directly what we're gonna use it on?
No, just for capital needs. Just various capital needs. So it's more of an accounting kind of sort of what we're trying to do. We're trying to clean up like older accounts. So in the fall, our comptroller goes and issues out notices to department directors and saying, hey, do you have unused capital dollars or things that haven't been moved or used or anything of the sort? Like you have an activity or project and you think it's $100,000. Then they only use $95,000. $95,000. You have $5,000 left. Those balances need to be canceled and reappropriated back. So in the fall, when we started looking at the balances or the books, the things that we had, I found that there was a lot of things that were kind of sort of open. And then there's this discussion with directors and me calling them and saying, hey, we need to cancel these items. What's going on with the status and projects? So there's going to be various, I think, reappropriations. This is kind of sort of the first tranche, and we want to keep it open-ended for kind of sort of various uses.
And how does these accounts once stay unused so long? Because I think I was looking at some from 2016.
Yep.
And like, give us some examples of typical, because $11 million is a lot of money.
I think in comparison to the city's budget, it's actually a small number, but you have to understand capital is like land acquisition, building improvements, it's project-based. So you can have a project that you have a goal for, and ultimately in year 1, you don't spend the money. Year 2, you don't spend the money, but in year 3, you spend the money. So ultimately, it's not like, oh, what didn't or did not happen. It's me kind of sort of reshifting our balance sheet so that we can actually use our funds for kind of sort of pay-as-you-go financing in our capital account.
Director, a request? I see that it's listed in the body of the ordinance, but if we could get that in a table or a chart, I think it might be easier to read and for us to better understand where, which old accounts these are originating.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I will say that we are moving into like a budget management software, and this kind of sort of spearheaded that. So on Monday, I do have a call with Debt Book to actually help my team do this, because a lot of this is in multiple spreadsheets, binders. I literally was looking through a pink binder that the former CFO had of all these ordinances and trying to tackle this, and it was like I said, we started this in the fall, and we're kind of sort of in the first tranches of cleaning up some things.
So can I piggyback on the Councilwoman's request, which is, when you put it in the table, can you also indicate in the table the original intended purpose of each bond? Yep. In the past, when we've done them, we'll do a bond ordinance, and there'll be a section for parks and a section for automotive and a section for building maintenance, and it's just helpful for us to see what's getting reappropriated. And I guess the second question I have is, what is the status of our capital budgeting? Are you intending to bring a capital budget to the council in 2022? What's the intention on getting our priorities for the capital budget? And I just want to say up front, I'm hesitant to move forward with an $11 million capital account with 0 strings attached, because as a council, all of us have extremely important capital priorities which have not gotten funded. And for us to just say, here's $11 million, when I have 16th Street Park, which has not been touched for over a decade, and we know why that hasn't been touched for over a decade, we need to prioritize that and put the funding in. So it's sort of hard for me to just say, hey, here's $11 million, no strings attached.
So it's not no strings attached. It's more, I need you guys to see it more as like an accounting methodology that we're trying to strike and trying to clean up something that I'm trying to move forward with our debt book management. So the reason why we kept this ordinance general is to, again, to say, like, your example, if we needed to move on it in 2 months or 3 months, we can move on it, right? Move with the financing that hasn't been touched. Like, we should not be keeping our balances open for years over years, right? Since 2016, 2007. We need to close those things, carry it forward, so that we can use it for various uses. So that's why it was kind of sort of in very vague without under like Class B kind of sort of notations, because we didn't want to like pinpoint it to things, saying this park for this park, this park for this park. What I am trying to determine is the financing of, okay, this may be a short-term financing. We should be issuing this. This is a GO. It should be issued like this. So this $11 million is a lot, yes, but I think in comparison to the city's budget, it's a small number, and I'm trying to make it under less than 5 years, right? So to your question about the capital budget, yes, a plan is going to be introduced. I am scheduled to meet with the business administrator, Barca, and the team to talk about our capital needs and the plan and the financing that we should be determining.
I appreciate that explanation. I think just from my perspective, it'd be helpful if we knew what the capital plan's going to be and how the council how the council's going to provide its input. You know, if this is part of that, that's one thing. You know, if it's separate, it's another. And I think it's, from my perspective, important to see how the capital priorities of the council are going to get funded in this year.
Okay. Anyone else? Good question.
So essentially, these funds have not been earmarked for anything specifically, correct?
No, this is a very general ordinance. It's just for capital uses. It's not.
What kinds of things can we like for capital improvements? What would be some sort of capital improvement project that the council could possibly utilize this for?
16th Street Park.
Parks, roads,
Streetscapes.
streetscapes. Okay, just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Because we've been waiting for that park for.
Comment, that's probably the best explanation we've had, and which is actually amazing. And, you know, I kind of like agree with with Councilman Solomon, because we have been advocating for that park for years and years. And, you know, the fact that you explained it this way, it actually makes a lot of sense, but we're looking forward to that park getting redone.
And, you know,
That's on the record.
thank you.
I want to reiterate 16th Street Park. Just, okay.
Okay.
Because I represent downtown now, too.
It's 2 for the price of 1.
Yes.
3 for the price of 1.
Thank you, Carmen.
You're welcome.
Thank you. John?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I'm here, Resolution 22-206. It's a resolution authorizing the payment of a claim submitted by Direct Energy for providing electric services through the PCER-PCPS contract.
That's 10.28, council members.
So the Division of Sustainability and Innovation entered us into a third-party contract. It was for an energy generation service agreement back in 2016. So the bills would be sent, and Steve Miller, who I've taken the position from, was getting the bills. However, he passed away, and these bills were floating out there. So working with the law department, we researched to see if they were ever paid, and they weren't. So we received a letter, or actually the BA received a letter from American Capital Recovery. So we had to, we went, as I said, did all the research. If you want any of this information here, I have a copy of it. And so we determined that we did have to pay these bills for the services they provided back in 2018.
It's a long time not to be paid.
Yeah. And, we were wondering where a lot of these invoices were, and we have to believe that Steve Miller used to take work home with him after he had them in his briefcase, probably.
Were there any?
Well, I don't want to say because he's not here, but I just think we got to have a better system in order to pay people, because I know I do get complaints that, the city is always late paying, or, people have a challenge getting paid from the city. And a city this size, I just think we should do better. 2018 is just too far, and I'm not blaming him.
Well, they actually admitted in the letter that they tried to reach out, and then they didn't know who to contact, and they should until they decided to send a letter to the VA's office. So the company themselves was a little delinquent in reaching out to us. Otherwise, they probably would have been paid.
What kind of services did they provide exactly?
Direct Energy, it was energy generation services. It was a third party. They worked in tandem with PSE&G, and it was a way to save money for energy services.
What specifically did they do, though?
Excuse me?
What specifically did they do? Because I'm just puzzled at the fact that you render a service and someone don't pay you in 3 years, and you don't know who to contact, and the entity is a municipal government. So what specific service? They are third party.
Third party energy service agreement. This only got dropped on me, so I tried to get up to speed on it. But I do have.
Council members, we'll get you the information for
Yes.
exactly what services were provided by sustainability before Wednesday.
Well, I do have the agreement here if you'd like a copy of the agreement.
We'll just summarize it for you.
And the date those services were rendered.
No problem.
Do we have any plans to solarize any municipal buildings? This is probably more for the
We do.
ABA than to John,
Yeah.
unless you know.
I don't.
Okay.
Yes, we do. So as a part of our ESIP, Energy Savings Improvement Plan, we have plans for 24 municipal buildings to get a variety of different energy savings and sustainability upgrades. So some of those involve solar panels, solar arrays, et cetera. Some of those involve lighting upgrades for more efficient lighting. Some of those are more involved in terms of structural work to the buildings themselves. So that work is starting this spring. We've already engaged with a couple of buildings, a couple of senior centers, and firehouses, et cetera. So we can send you that information, but it does include solar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Dave from HHS, Disease Prevention.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have one resolution this evening, number 22-200.
What's the resolution? We can't hear you.
22-200. This is a resolution authorizing the renewal of a professional services agreement with LifeMod LLC. LifeMod LLC is founded by Dr. Gonzalez, MD. He's been working with the city for close to 7 years. Under his medical guidance, the Division of Disease Prevention City Clinic has been able to provide vaccines to uninsured or underinsured children living in Jersey City at no cost. We've also been able to assess, diagnose, treat, and refer for sexually transmitted infections under his guidance. And more recently, in partnership with the Division of Immigration Affairs, Dr. Gonzalez has provided civil surgeon exams to refugees living in Jersey City at no cost. And he's also the ordering provider for COVID testing done throughout the city.
He is. Any questions?
How does one avail themselves of his services? Like, let's say I'm, looking to get my child immunized, or, how do I go about doing that? Do I go through the city?
Through the city. They can give us a call at the Office of Disease Prevention, and we do all the appointments.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I just have your name.
Karen David.
Karen David, thank you.
Thank you.
John, CFO. Got a lot of Johns. 10.2. Got a lot of Johns and Matts. Business administrator. Well, he said his name is John. Hi, how you doing?
Hi, Counsel.
He said John. He said John. You
Oops,
said
sorry.
John. Go ahead.
Yep. I'm speaking tonight for Resolution 22-180, 10.2, and it's authorizing a refund of a pilot payment in lieu of taxes arrangement, a prepayment that was done way back in June of 2006. So they are asking for their money back. I want to issue the refund. This is one of this is one of 8 entities related to the Beacon. There's a parent company that has 8 individual entities underneath it. 4 of them are active pilots Another 4 are, contemplated pilots going back to that period of time. And for all 4 entities, this is just one of them. They have, decided not to go through with it. So they've applied and all that stuff for a pilot arrangement, but they have not gone through with it. So they want their prepayment back. And the way this works, the prepayment is, once you enter into a pilot agreement, the terms would be something like, we would get X% of the gross revenues of that project, and the prepayment would be in advance, so of those, charges. So that's pretty much it.
Is there no statute of limitations
I did,
for
so
prepayment?
the work I did last year, and for, they've been very good and very patient with me, but I've been very diligent in looking into all these things. They actually requested repayment of their affordable housing trust contributions, and I checked with legal, and we were under no obligation to give that back, but we are under the obligation to give the prepayments back. There is no statute of limitations.
So, since 2006,
Yeah,
Right.
We have to give them this money back, essentially.
yeah.
It sounds ridiculous, but okay.
We actually have already given some money back to one of the entities with the last council, so there's going to be 2 more to go, totaling close to $500,000.
Why did they not go ahead with, I guess, developing the project or the tax abatement? Was that on them? Was that on us? Do you know the history?
That's probably something to think about going forward if we ever do want to do these things, but there was no requirement for them, no timeline for them to do it or anything like that.
So we should put in, if we ever do this, a timeline for, basically expiration on any prepayments.
Yeah, we should think about that and engage finance, and we can. I've learned a lot in my experience with pilot agreements, and maybe working with legal to maybe tighten up some language. And
Do you know if that could be done via ordinance, or is that state law, governed by state law?
well, it's the long-term tax exemption law that governs it, but the finance agreement is, just is in compliance with that statute. But the language can be definitely tidied up. I mean, it's not, it's just the agreement between the city and the parties, and that supersedes.
Do they have any other tax abatements?
yeah, or
Yeah, they have, it's one parent company that has 8 different entities, and they're all it looks like they're up there. And this particular one is 30 Baldwin Avenue. I don't have the other addresses offhand, but
This company have how many more?
they have, it's 30 Baldwin is the address
Oh,
of this
30
entity.
Baldwin.
But the parent company, so this is a child entity of that company.
Subsidiary.
So there's
Yeah.
8 altogether in Jersey City.
are there any other outstanding, when someone will come in 2 more years from 2004?
I don't think there's anything going back to that date. We have quite a few pilots, and I always say to people, they're like a soap opera. There's so much history and stories to them, but I don't think there are some more recent ones that have prepayments that we'll have to look at.
And again, there's no statute of limitations at all.
No.
Do we know what our exposure is as a city when it comes to how many prepayments of pilots that we've had that haven't actually been fulfilled?
I don't think there's many, but I would like to be more certain and just to kind of give an actual dollar amount, but intuitively, just from reading through these things, I don't think there's many out there.
Okay, we should definitely tighten
But
this
I'll
up.
look into that. I'll have somebody, we'll work on that.
Thank you.
Give you a better answer. I'd like to know that too.
Wow. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Ed?
Good evening, Council. I'm here for Resolution 10.1, resolution authorizing to settle some appeals before the tax court. if you look at the tax, the listing we have on the property that we're seeking for settlement mostly are residential and apartments. The same because of the every year you have a moving criteria. Every year you have a different ratio. Every year there are different parameters that you use. Basically, a lot of this, when you have 2018 assessments through the years, sometimes it would impact what the true value of the properties are. And mind you, this it's going to be a recurring request from the council every time we have settlements made, either before the taxpayers or before their attorneys. As we move along every day, we always have, depending on the tax court calendars, we have to do some kind of a settlement conferences with the attorneys. And these are not huge amounts as the last one we had before. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to.
Have these been adjudicated through a tax court, or you're saying that this was a settlement between the property owner's attorney and landlord with the city?
Yeah, it is a settlement. In other words, these cases won't go to trial.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Gigi? 10.6.
Good afternoon, council members. How are you?
Good afternoon, Gigi.
Thank you for allowing me to come and speak today. I am speaking on agenda item 10.6, resolution number 22-184, authorizing the award of a competitively bid contract to Intellectics, Inc. to install and maintain hardware and software for the operation of a consolidated affordable housing portal. This is something that the city has envisioned and planned on doing for quite some time. It is intended to make it easier for the residents of Jersey City to locate affordable housing, apply for it more simply. Currently, they have to go to each individual building to apply. So you can imagine they might be managing 10 applications. Application fees can be costly. So we're hoping to try to reduce the impact on the residents for their application process. And the other side of it, the developers will be able to receive those applications much more simply through a digital platform. And that's the intention of this resolution, to award this contract. We went through a bid process, there was a review committee, and this was the vendor that was selected, and we'd like to award them the contract.
So let me ask you a question, Gigi. So who then is responsible for the placing of the people as they come along?
The developer is still responsible, or their administrative agent, their property managers. So the process wouldn't change materially in the sense of how it's done. It's the simplicity of how it's done, reducing the amount of paperwork, reducing the amount of contacts. So the vision would be that if I'm a resident, I go onto the portal, I create my profile, I tell the portal what I'm looking for. It will match me to open applications, buildings that have current units available. And then on the back end, it will send my application pre-qualified to the building managers, and then they can look at it, and then there's a lottery. It's going to go with we basically take the manual process that we do now and make it more friendly, more digital, more 21st century.
But it's still going to go into the same pot of the purgatory waiting list then?
Well, probably not for us. So the beginning phase, the first phase of this will be for the Division of Affordable Housing's portfolio, and these are the much newer buildings that are going up, and so the waiting lists should not be very long. We do run those through a lottery. Each property manager does a lottery, and that's how people get placed. And then after that, there's a waiting list, yes. So there is going to be a purgatory of waiting lists because there's not enough affordable housing for the people who are looking for it.
So my final question then is we can't mistake this for public housing being done by the city of Jersey City? Because that's the phone calls. I could anticipate these phone calls and these emails coming tomorrow.
Right.
So
No.
we just have to make sure that this is for new development that are like on this lottery.
Right. Well, no, I mean, our vision is to put as much affordable housing in here as possible. So we're going to start with new developments, and hopefully community developments properties can also come on here. Jersey City Housing Authority will not, because they're their own entity and they have their own portal. But we will cross-link to that portal, and we will put information about what Housing Authority has available on this portal as well. Councilman?
Thank you. Have they ever done any other website or portal similar to this?
Yes, they have done for Washington State. They have worked with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, also the U.S. Department of Commerce, the City of Tacoma, the City of Spokane, and they've received 7 industry awards for the kind of work that they do.
Okay. Second question is, are they going to work alongside your department to ensure that it's done to the specifications that you and the best benefits the Jersey, not just you, but what best benefits the city of Jersey City and the residents?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, my colleague Nina Carlson is here. She is our data analyst and community engagement coordinator. She is responsible for project managing this, and they will be working with her to make sure that it's customized to our wishes, to what the residents need and what the developers also need to be able to place tenants more quickly.
And final question, because a lot of times people put up websites and they're not maintained and kept up to date. Not to say the city of Jersey City, but will she also be charged with the maintenance and upkeep of the website as well?
That will be part of a continuing contract with this vendor, so this contract will be for 2 years. The initial upfront bulk expenditure will be for the creation, and then after that it will be for their support and maintenance of the portal. But yes, the dedicated staffer in the Division of Affordable Housing will be Nina to make sure, hey, something's broken, we got to fix it, let's get that done. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Gigi, with this new application process, as you mentioned before, you typically have to go to each development and fill out an application. Is this application that's going to be on this portal like something that comes straight from HUD, or like how do we make sure that this one application covers, I guess, everything that each different developer would want to see so that we're not causing them to do double work?
Right, so currently the applications that are for the projects that our that our division monitors, it's a form, and they have to use the application that we have designed for them. Some things can vary and change, but for the most part, the application is a universal application that looks the same each time a resident fills it out. And in this case, the portal would make it one. Right now, the developers do what's called an affordable housing marketing plan that we have to sign off on, and we sign off on all the forms that they're using.
Okay, so we can kind of require them to accept our form.
Absolutely, and we do change those forms as we see fit or as the state changes any laws. For example, the Fair Chance in Housing Act that just passed, we make sure to update the developers and let them know that that law exists and it's on the books, and now how they have to conduct their criminal background checks very differently than they used to.
Thank you.
How do we advertise this service, one, and is there going to be any training? Because a lot of times people are just not savvy in the cyberspace as it relates to doing anything. I know my mom, she wants nothing to do with anything electronically. So how do we make sure that that demographic is not being ignored?
Right, so the vision that we have for this portal, A, is to launch it with a lot of fanfare once it's there and ready and it's been tested. We also would like to conduct some community trainings for community leaders and nonprofit organizations to also understand how to use it, deploy, librarians or folks at libraries. Also, one of our buildings over by the annex is a walk-in, and hopefully we can put some kiosks there as well and provide assistance through our staff. The Division of Affordable Housing is sort of very tied to this portal. They were sort of envisioned and came into the world and were created together. And so we would grow it as we grow our staff and our capacity.
Okay, and the gist of it is really just to simplify the beginning process so you don't have to go down Marion here, go to General Square. It's a one-stop shop center right there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Director, just apologize if you reiterated this. If I fill out information and apply, and then, 3 months later, a new development comes up and I may qualify, does this have the ability to kind of proactively, notify me via email or text and say, hey, there's an application that you may be eligible for?
Yep. It's kind of like any of those portals where you sign up like Open Table in the restaurant. It's like, hey, I know you like Italian food, so guess what? We just opened a new restaurant down the street. It will have that same capability.
And is it based on like the whatever income and family size and all that I put in?
Everything that they fill in as well, household size, what they're looking for. Many times people would like housing in this particular area, but if there's no housing there, we'll still send them where there is actually housing that meets their criteria.
Great. And I also saw in the proposal that it's going to be in multiple languages. You just wanted to know how they're doing that? Are they actually going to translate, or are they just using a sort of, online Google Translate software?
So glad I brought Nina. Do you remember what they said about that? They do.
Hello, good evening. So they have a translating capability outside of Google Translate.
Okay,
so
great.
you shouldn't get like the weird wonky.
Right, it should be, well translated.
Smooth,
basically.
readable. We also, just to add, we highlighted in the proposal Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1, which are the most up-to-date guidelines for accessibility for visually and hearing impaired folks.
Great. Great. I mean, it's a great model for all of the stuff we do. I mean, we wanted languages with VIA, we talked about it with MUA and some other things, but this is, I think, a very good model for us for everything in the future.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Thank you, Gigi.
Thank you very much, council members.
Deja.
Good evening, members of the council. I am here tonight to actually present 3 resolutions, the first one being 1020, a resolution of the Municipal Council to execute a subgrantee agreement with Northeast New Jersey Legal Service for administering the city's COVID-19 CARES Act funds for the Emergency Solutions Grant Program for the program year running April 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2022, and we are asking for $250,000 to be allocated from those CARES Act funds to help prepare, prevent, and respond to COVID-19. We know that there are a looming number of evictions and legal support that members of the community are going to need, and that's why this request is in front of the council.
Questions?
How many folks do you anticipate this would help?
I can get back to you in reference to that number specifically, but it's earmarked for that specific amount of funds. So with most lawyers, they are a retainer by hour, so based off spending the $250,000 being allocated.
And how are we going to decide which one of the families get the service?
Those individual members of the community will be reaching out to Northeast New Jersey Legal Services, who will follow through their regular procedure of qualifying residents for these services.
So first come, first serve, basically?
That is correct.
Any more questions?
Does the city plan on doing any sort of rent relief? Or, I mean, I understand the legal services to have people not get evicted, preventing eviction, but also are we considering doing some sort of rent relief in coordination with providing legal services?
Okay, we do currently have rent relief programs that are out right now. The ERA program is funds that are coming directly from the U.S. Department of Treasury, which we have out in the community. So no, we are not giving rental relief, emergency relief funds to Northeast New Jersey Legal Services. We want them to focus on the legal aspect of supporting our members who are facing eviction in the court system. So they will have that information as referral to provide to community members there. We will ensure that.
not for Northeast Legal Services. You know how we did with the Community Affairs, Carmen Gandula, when she was there? There was like a huge rent relief program that the city did. Maybe that's better directed towards BARCA, the ABA.
The city is working on identifying further funds to continue that program from the last couple of years that we did through additional funding coming in from the federal government. I don't have the details as we're still working through that right now, but we're planning on continuing that as much as possible.
Okay, as long as we're considering it. Thank you. That's it.
Go ahead, anyone else? Next.
Because I'm just scared that we'll have some families go before the court and there will be some agreement for them to pay something, and they might not even have it to pay. So where do we go from there? We pay for legal representation to have them represented. Now the agreement is that they pay, I don't know, 6 months that out of the 12 that they owe, or whatever that agreement is, and then they don't have the financial capacity to do so.
Councilman, that's correct. If for a moment I can put on a former hat of mine as the acting rent leveling administrator, so that focus of discussing mediation and any other actions that are taking place in the court between tenants and the landlords is an education piece that is required to the residents of the community to know what their legal options are. Northeast New Jersey Services is an organization that has been active in our community for a long time, and they're well versed on providing tenants with that information as long as they reach out to them at the beginning of that process and not once mediation and any type of binding agreements have been entered into.
Next one, Deja, you said you had 3?
Yes, ma'am. The first one is 10.8, a resolution authorizing the business administrator to execute a discharge of the mortgage for the property located at 225 Wegman Parkway, Jersey City. This property received funds in the amount of $24,444 from the homeowner repair program. The city is only obligated to hold any restrictions for 10 years. That time restriction has been met, and we are obligated to discharge this mortgage.
Can you explain, if you can, how does this program work? So the city gives someone money to
make repairs to their home, and then there is restrictions placed on their mortgage that doesn't allow them to sell, where we would have a chance to recapture those funds up front. So at this time, they satisfied the 10-year lien with the promise not to sell the home. They have not. They still maintain the prom. So we need to discharge this mortgage.
Can they move during that time frame?
If they do during that 10 years, it will incur a penalty, and that's why we have this additional mortgage added onto the home to prevent that from happening.
So it essentially act as the first one that the gentleman spoke about earlier, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They'll be set free.
Okay, thank you. The second resolution that I'm putting forth is 10.9, a resolution authorizing the business administrator to execute a discharge for the mortgage of the property located at 9 Claremont Avenue in Jersey City. That property received funds from our GNHP, which is our first-time home buyer program. This also has an obligation of 10 years. This property owner received $18,243 from the city. This 10-year time restriction has been met, and we are obligated to discharge the mortgage.
What happens if he paid that amount before the 10 years? Is it a matter of the reimbursement or the matter of the time frame?
So once we get into these specific documents in reference to putting restrictions on the mortgage, once we execute that document and it's recorded, that restriction stands as is. I can follow up with you and give any additional information on the parameters and any rules in reference to restrictions that community development places on any properties.
Come on, Rodney.
Yeah, Rodney knows everything.
Under the GNHP program.
Could you, Rodney?
Yeah, under GNHP program, in fact, there's a sliding scale based on the number of years that you would have to repay if, in fact, you sell the property. So let's say if you sell after 8 years, then you would owe us, 20% back. But once you meet the 10-year period, then you're not obligated to pay us anything back. It's zero repayment.
But what happens if I enter this program on March 7th, 2022, hit the lotto on March 8th, and I want to pay y'all money back?
Under the GNHP program, you are obligated to pay us 100% back of what we awarded to.
So would that remove the 10 years?
Yes, we would remove the link, yes.
All right.
But not the interest, not the
Oh, not the
11% interest.
I was just concerned about the
Yeah.
time
No,
frame.
because if they do, just say they hit the lotto, and they could just pay it off, They could just pay it off, right?
Yes, under the GNHP program.
Right, under that program, because I know you got about 20 programs.
There are various programs. You have to look at the
Oh.
specific language under those
Program
programs.
is different.
Under the GNHP program, you can repay us back. Some of the earlier GNHP mortgages, we had a clause where even after the end of the restricted period, upon the first sale, you're obligated to pay us back 50% of our original investment. So it depends on the timing and language in which mortgage they executed.
Tell you, contracts. Go ahead, next one.
That was the last one that I had for the pleasure of the council.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Jared? I know, wait, I gotta wait now. I see you, Jack, I see you.
Good evening. My name is Jared Weiss. I'm one of the public defenders in the municipal court. I'm here on resolution or ordinances. Wow, I'm a lawyer and I should be able to do better.
It's different, right?
It is
On the
very
other
different,
side.
yes. 10.11 and 10.12, resolutions 189 and 190. I'm appearing tonight on behalf of our Chief Public Defender, Andrew Abrams, who unfortunately was out of state on a prepaid family vacation and asked me to appear this evening as his designee. I've been a public defender now in the city for the past 5 years. There are 15 of us seeking appointment for the calendar year 2022. We have been operating in holdover status since the start of the new year. The group performs services on a weekly basis, typically. There are at least 3 to 4 sessions per day, including the prisoner calendar from the Hudson County Jail, the mental health calendar, the domestic violence calendar. We handle one of the night court sessions, and as well as the community court. So we have been working virtually since the middle of 2020 when court operations resumed. In-person appearances are now beginning for certain contested matters, including DWI trials and domestic violence trials, but the vast majority of our work continues to be virtual.
Any questions? That's it, Jared, thank you.
The second matter I appreciate. The second matter is with regards to Mr. Abrams' request for appointment as Chief Public Defender. By state statute, in a municipality where there is more than one public defender, we are required to have an individual identified as the chief. Mr. Abrams has been serving as the Chief Public Defender for the past 15 years and is seeking reappointment to that position for 2022.
These are done on an annual basis, both 1011 and 1012?
Yes.
Okay.
There are 15 of us. The number has varied over time, but we are 15 last year, and I believe the same 15 this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone have a good evening.
You too. Okay, Sean, you can take it from the top. Oh, Jack, I'm sorry.
Very easy to forget me.
We have to untable her.
I meant to speak on ordinance 3.1.
Jack, we
Oh,
can't.
sorry. I meant to speak before on ordinance 3.1. It's the cost of living adjustment ordinance. And this is pretty much pretty routine and pretty prudent, but the state allows us to increase our appropriations year over year by a cap of 2.5%. But they allow us to, by executing this ordinance, they allow us to extend that another 1%, so we can go 3.5% over prior year's appropriations with certain exclusions. So it's just it's not meant, and then it also allows us, in the prior 2 years, we've been under that cap, so we've been banking that money, and we could use that as well. So it's just if we don't pass this ordinance, I don't make the laws, but if we don't pass this ordinance, we won't have that ability to do that. So, we're still going to be stewards, responsible stewards of our finances, and this doesn't mean we're looking to spend all that, money and go hog wild, but it gives us the flexibility in case we need it.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any negative impact to increasing the cap for the city, or it's just increasing our appropriations and saying we're going to spend 3.5% more than we did last year?
That's basically, it's a pretty, mathematical exercise. So it's all, it's all in our budget. It's in its own separate page. So, we have significant, our total, we theoretically can, expand our, have our appropriations like close to $558 million, but I shouldn't even say that because then we have to look at the tax levy. We can't cap, and I don't have that that calculated just yet. But the bottom line is this is just something. It's a prudent move to provide us the flexibility, because if we don't, then we're going to have to go borrow, and interest rates. Who knows what they're going to be in the future?
Absolutely, the Fed's probably going to increase the interest rate soon.
Yep.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, Sean.
Ernie Ruffin.
Excuse me, already.
Go ahead.
Okay, item 3.1 was touched on just now, so we're moving on to item 3.2. City Ordinance 22-026 is an ordinance amending Chapter 148 discrimination to include pay transparency regulation for the Jersey City employers in Jersey City Municipal Code. 3.3 City
Wait a minute,
Ordinance.
Sean.
Talk about
Sorry.
it? Or?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I don't know if I want to go through the whereas clauses, but essentially women, we know about the gender pay gap. Women earn less than men, especially minority women, and this idea was born out of a resident in the Heights, Nicole Marie Jones, and essentially New York City had passed a pay transparency ordinance and requested that Jersey City follow suit. And myself, along with the councilwomen, Denise Ridley, Councilwoman Mira Prinzeri, Councilwoman Amy DeGeese, and Council President Joyce Waterman banded together, and we're putting a pay transparency ordinance forward. This pay transparency ordinance essentially says employers that employ 4 or more employees within the city of Jersey City would have to post the salary range and benefits or the hourly wage and benefits for any job posting. And the fine for not doing so would be approximately up to $2,000. It would go through code compliance or the new women's committee that was formed under council president's leadership. And essentially that committee would also be charged with disseminating the information to businesses, essentially career fairs, all at universities, to let individuals, especially women, know of their rights to know how much they would possibly earn when they apply for a job posting. And this is to combat the gender wage gap. And a lot of time and energy and resources are expended when women have to go apply for a position. And as you know, we don't have mandatory paid family leave as a policy in the United States. So in between juggling motherhood, jobs, and everything else in society, I feel as though the time value of money here, like when women get to the very end of an interview process and either they get lowballed or they don't ask for as much At least now, they'll know on the front end how much each job posting, how much each job is. They know the salary range, they know the benefits, they know if they get, how many months of leave they get, or, you know, everything else associated with that. So I hereby submit this for consideration to the council.
It's called transparency.
I just want to thank the councilwomen on the city council as well for sponsoring this with me as well. Thank you.
Go ahead. Anybody else? Okay. Next, Sean.
Okay. Item 3.3, City Ordinance 22-027 is an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 9, Parking for the Disabled of the Jersey City Code, designating reserved parking space at various locations throughout the city. Item 3.4, City Ordinance 22-028 is an ordinance of the City of Jersey City and the County of Hudson, New Jersey, establishing Chapter 135 to create a permit requirement to operate a crane.
So,
BA.
Council, this is, we're introducing an ordinance to create what would essentially be a registration for anyone who is working in the building using a crane to create a record for the city's use to know who is operating the cranes and where they're located at various sites throughout the city where there's, you know, lots of development going on. We currently don't have a record or a registry of this kind, although the operators are required to have licenses from the state and are required to follow certain federal regulations, so this would not be preempting that. It would just be creating a mechanism where we could have a registry of this within the city.
and the fee is
About time.
$100?
Yes, Councilman, that's the proposed fee.
Can we also include a notice requirement that the council person or the neighborhood be notified prior to the installation of a crane in their community? Similar to like a demolition requirement, you know, when you demolish a home, they usually send out a notice to everybody. And, because a lot of people get nervous when there's a crane swinging around their house.
Sure, I don't see any issues with that, Councilman. We'll work with the law department to figure out the exact language for this version of the ordinance.
And these cranes wouldn't be parked on the street after hours, right? Would they be able to park overnight?
In some cases, they are. In some cases, they aren't. If it is within the right-of-way, the permitting of that is handled by the engineering division. If it's on private property, it's handled by the Office of the Construction Code official. So yes, in some cases there are, and if the request is to tighten up those requirements, we can look into that separately. Wouldn't be a part of this ordinance, I don't think. The purpose of this is just to create a mechanism in which they're, you know, registering within the city.
Any more questions?
All right. Move on.
Okay. Item 3.5, City Ordinance 22-029 is an ordinance of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City vacating a portion of Commercial Street from the intersection of Cave and Point Avenue and the New Jersey Turnpike overpass. 3.6.
Hold on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, very good, thanks. So Commercial Street is a paper street. We're just clearing the books on that. It's essentially a non-existent street. It will never be paved, turned into a city right-of-way. We're just simply cleaning up that part of the city property books.
So, Peter, so Commercial Street is, I guess, the unofficial street where the gas station is, where the vehicle currently park or whatever. So I guess initially we were proposing for that to be a street, correct? For something, I remember some years ago, there was some talks with regards to connecting to the turnpike and trucks and all this other stuff.
You might know that better than me. I'm not familiar with those conversations.
So essentially, who, or we give, it said something about reverting the property to the neighbor, or who is it going to?
There's a portion of the street that's essentially abutting against the backyards of the private properties that are along Garfield Avenue in their backyard. So there's a portion of it that would return to that, just to clean up, because some of the backyards are encroaching on what would have been the public right-of-way, and some of them are not. So this would just create a standard boundary of, where those backyards are. And so this is just vacation. This is just vacating a portion of the street for that purpose.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out, because like I said, initially there were talks about this becoming some type of exit or something with the turnpike.
I can say, as far as I know, that is not that proposal. If it was several years ago, is not what's moving forward.
All right. So so I guess my next question is, did we pay to acquire any of that property, and the property that we're giving back, are we subsequently getting funds back that we dispersed? So we didn't pay anything for this? Not that you know of, or did it occur?
Not that I know of, but we can double check that and get that information to you for Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll check on that, Councilman.
Okay. And the idea behind this is we're saying we're never going to use this as a public street. This is something that's long gone. We're not even considering it anymore.
Correct.
Go ahead, Sean.
Okay, 3.6, City Ordinance 22-030 was touched on earlier. On to our second reading ordinances. Item 4.1, City Ordinance 22-018 is an ordinance amending Chapter 53, Personnel, Article 11, Fixed Salaries, to modify the salary of the council president and council members of the City of Jersey City. Item 4.2, City Ordinance 22-019 is an ordinance amending Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Parking, Standing, Stopping, Article 8, Metered Parking, and Article 7, and Article 8, Permit Parking, to implement new parking regulations in Gulf's Cove area. Item 4.3, City Ordinance 22-020 is an ordinance amending Chapter 296, Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Rights-of-Way, and Chapter 160, Fees and Charges, Section JJ, Streets and Sidewalks, and Public Rights-of-Way of the Jersey City Municipal Code. Unfortunately, there was some mix-up with the ad in the Jersey Journal. The Jersey Journal advertised the ad, and it had the wrong schedule. So, council members, if you don't mind, we'll need a motion on Wednesday to carry this ordinance for the March 23rd meeting for adoption.
Okay, no problem, Sean.
Okay. Item 4.4, City Ordinance 22-021 is an ordinance amending Chapter A352, enabling ordinances of the Jersey City Municipal Code, and dedicating Columbia Avenue from North Street to Leonard Street in New Jersey as John Zaborowski Senior Way.
Persons, I lost my web connection, I'm sorry, but I believe I instructed them to amend it so that council persons, Tajis and Saleh, would be co-sponsors. Did that take?
Thank you so much.
John was a good person. One of the best.
Item 4.5, City Ordinance 22-022 is an ordinance amending Chapter 160 of the Jersey City Code to revise the fees for administration of government by the city clerk and the fees for resident parking permits, to amend Chapter 332 to revise the requirements for resident parking permits.
I just want to say regarding this, Lot 4, I know we're working on it, but if it's not resolved by Wednesday, if we could table this, because right now we have metered parking that was removed, and basically the residents in the Heights are suffering, and it's been ongoing for 2 years, and it happened when Michael Youn passed away, essentially, and they removed the meters, and I want the meters put back. And until then, I would like this tabled until that's resolved. And it's like a toothache that won't go away.
It is like a toothache that seems like it's not going to go away. Can we get something in writing? So
Understood.
we know when he's going to get his meters.
I did speak with John Metro about it today. He's on it. I just want to ensure that it's resolved, that it, it doesn't, that we don't lose sight of that before this is posted.
Understood, Councilman and Council President. We'll work on getting you the information you requested before Wednesday, although I would request the council to, consider letting this ordinance move forward. The fees are essential to the city's departments and their operations, and they include many different departments' fees, not only the permit parking fees that we've proposed. So happy to discuss further, and we'll do everything we can to get you the information. But I just want to emphasize the need for that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I just, I hope that it's resolved by Wednesday. That's all. And it's a very simple fix, by the way. So,
Can I ask on the text of the ordinance, did we amend it to include either indexing for inflation or an increase in the annual permit cost for a non-resident?
Yes, we did amend the non-residential fee. We used as a metric the off-street parking rate that someone would pay in a garage, for example. The annual average for that in the year 2019, which was the last year we had of sort of normal circumstances, was $2,300 for the year. And so based on that, we made it $2,500, which is a significant increase, as you know, from what it's been. We did not make the change tying the fees to inflation. We'll work on that language and maybe a subsequent iteration of that, but we're still working through exactly how we can tie that in here.
Okay, that's great. I think for the inflation fees, it could apply to all fees potentially, so it doesn't have to be in this ordinance, but as long as we're working on it, that's great. And I think I understand tying it to the fee for the 2019. I think we may have to adjust if demand is lower or higher, but start here and we can move it.
Understood.
I received some pushback on Section 10, Item F, regarding the contractor permit parking, where it says contractor parking permit 1 to 2 family residences. It actually came from Boggiano's area, but there was valid criticism that they don't want contractors to have parking permits.
I would just clarify that language, the first tier of fees is for 1 and 2 family residential homes, but also contractors performing work on behalf of the city, as opposed to independent contractors or contractors for developers for whom there's a much higher fee, unless I'm misunderstanding.
Page 3, Section 10, and then you go down to line item F, or row F. It just sounds
okay.
vague.
Understood. So that one actually, okay, understood. So contractor parking permit 1 and 2 family residences, the 6-month permit going from $125 to $175. Is that the concern?
Yes, that they were in opposition to even giving a parking permit to contractors. But you're saying this is for city contractors, or?
No, I thought you were referring to a different fee, so disregard what I said. For this fee, it looks like there was already an existing $125 fee, and it's just being slightly increased to $175 for this year. So we're not creating a new fee that never existed. We're just updating what the rate is.
Okay, so this permit, they're not, their opposition isn't to the fee, it's to the giving out of the permit to contractors, but you're telling me that this permit existed prior to, okay.
Correct.
That's from the Hilltop neighborhood.
The strike-through is only for the amount itself, not for the addition or change of the fee type.
Understood, thank you.
To clarify, though, this would also be for a contractor who is, say, removing an oil tank in someone's home or doing work on their property. So it's for work specific to a home on that block, not necessarily somebody just coming in and parking to do.
Exactly. So
sundry,
there's a
right?
different fee structure for
Right.
something.
So you would actually probably want that as a homeowner to be able to have that spot in front of your house so they could remove the tank in a faster manner,
Correct.
right?
Wait, so this, I'm sorry, I'm confused now. Is this, so 6 months, so let's say I'm like fixing up a home, and I'm a contractor, I would come and I'd only pay $175 for 6 months worth of parking? Or it's just I'm sorry, being able to park there, be permitted to park there?
Yeah, I mean, we can clarify that with the parking authority. I believe it's for a period of up to 6 months for longer term work. And then there's also a daily permit, which is the $15 per day, depending on the length of the work. And the idea there is that a lot of times our 1 and 2 family residences do have work like that needs to happen. And the fees are really a substantial barrier for them. And so that's the amount which, has been a reasonable amount up until now. Whereas if a contractor working on like a high-rise building, for example, was looking to occupy public parking spaces for a period of 6 months, it would be priced very differently, which is what we've tried to capture in the next ordinance. That's for your consideration. So this is priced differently because of the fact that it's work for 1 and 2 family residential.
Understand. Thank you so much for that explanation.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4.6, City Ordinance 22-023 is an ordinance amending Chapter 332 of the Jersey City Code to permit the rental of parking spaces and the installation of parking meter covers and setting fees. Okay, next is item 4.7, City Ordinance 22-024 is an ordinance of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City adopting amendments to the Awesomeness Cove Station Redevelopment Plan to alter the regulating plans, maps, and street select sections, as well as the intensity summary tables of the West Neighborhood District. I believe this ordinance also will have to be carried to the next meeting on March 23rd. At least that's what the communication I had with Matt Ward. I can pull up the email because I think something, did the planning board meet and request that?
Okay, we'll confirm.
I apologize. I do have an email from him, and I'll confirm that.
Okay.
All right. As far as public speakers go, we only have 4 listed on our agenda.
Sean, we have to discuss.
Oh, that's right, that's right. I apologize. So we're going to move right to the end, the tabled ordinance. So we have on our tabled agenda item 11.1, City Ordinance 22-010 is an ordinance adopting amendments to the Morris Canal Redevelopment Plan regarding the creation of Berry Lane Park, North Zone, 417 Communipore Avenue, Block 18901, lots 23 and 29, on remand per September 23rd, 2021 court order.
Hi, Tanya and I came to review anything that the council has, any questions regarding why this is being remanded and brought back to the council. If you'd like, I can give a little summary of what the situation was. So,
Yes, and also can you speak closer to the microphone?
all right, yes. So back in December of 2020, this governing body voted on the ordinance that is in front of you. That ordinance was challenged. I have the judgment in front of me. The court made rulings on different findings within that ordinance. Specifically, they looked at the noticing requirements in the plan. That was one of the things that was challenged by the plaintiffs. I'll quote a little bit of what's in the judgment. So the court finds that the various notice provisions contained in the original plan were satisfied. Having found that the defendant substantially complied with the notice requirements contained in the plan, the court now considers the more substantive challenges of the agency's actions. So on the first part, which was the notice requirements, the judge found that there was no issues with the process that the city undertook. The second aspects looked at more of the substantive aspects that have to do with arbitrary and capricious and all of the case law regarding the technical aspects of the plan. In local housing redevelopment law, when looking at to either adopt a redevelopment plan or amend a redevelopment plan, I'll read the quote directly from local housing redevelopment law. All provisions of the redevelopment plan shall either be substantially consistent with the municipal master plan or designed to effectuate the master plan, but the municipal governing body may adopt a redevelopment plan which is inconsistent with or were not designed to effectuate the master plan by affirmative vote of the majority of its full authorized membership, with the reasons of so acting forth, as per the local housing redevelopment law. So the planning board voted on that redevelopment plan amendment. It was sent to you all to review and vote on. You voted in the affirmative, but as it was challenged, the judge looked at the findings and whether or not they were put on the record regarding its being substantial, complying with the existing master plan. The court found, I'll actually read directly from the judgment. So the court, they also stated that, that in general, the court will not overturn such conclusions if supported by the record below, so that the agency's actions would not be considered arbitrary or capricious, right?
So what do we have to do now?
So this is the key.
I'm familiar with this pretty much. So
In this
it went to
matter,
planning, and it came back to us, and what we did, we tabled it, all right? And I know it was supposed to have been a couple of meetings, if I'm correct, all right?
Yes, that
Okay, so
actually,
now we had the meetings, so now
so what you're voting on.
untabling it to see if they want it or not. They have to vote yes or no. That's,
Well, but I'm just trying to be clear about what you're voting yes or no on. You're voting yes or no on. It said the planning board found that the proposed amendment is consistent with the master plan.
Right.
What they asked is that, however, this court will remand this matter to the local agencies so that they can better expound on the findings of fact in the record that support that conclusion. So they sent it back to better expand on that. That happened at the planning board. That resolution was given to all of you when the last time it was brought in front of you. And so that's what your vote is, whether or not the planning board expanded on how the plan and amendments as proposed are consistent with the master plan.
Okay. That's it. Any questions concerning that?
so I'm confused a little. So can you explain, you're saying it was remanded, right, to specifically focus if it follows the guidelines of the master plan, correct?
Whether or not the amendments proposed were consistent with the city master plan that was adopted at that time, yes.
Okay, but as a council, don't we have the jurisdiction and/or right to essentially listen to the community as it relates to the proposals that's going in the plan? Because if we move forward with a vote, it would essentially allow certain things to take place within that project, seeing that it's not zoned for the current proposal that's slated to go there.
But that did happen. That happened in December 2020, and this governing body decided that it was in the interest of the city. That happened.
No, I guess you're missing the question that I'm asking.
This council does have that right, and that happened. I'm just saying that they exercised that right in December of 2020 and voted in the affirmative for the proposal.
I know, but what I'm saying, and again, I want to make sure that I'm clear on what I'm saying and what I'm asking, because First of all, there's actually conversations and meetings that the developer is setting up with the community as it relates to this project. So I'm trying to figure out, one, the level of communications as it relates to this project, and then two, the allowance, because essentially the reality is when you vote on this project, we're voting to move it from what's able to develop in one zone versus what's being able to be developed in a redevelopment zone. So I don't want to get that misconstrued. I want the record to reflect that, because people are speaking about this as if, oh, the court just said go do that. So I just want to be clear on that. And with the court sent it back for, what is the ramifications on how the zone would change if we vote?
The court did not send it back for you to reconsider that issue. The court only sent it back. Specifically, they only remanded it to the planning board, okay, to specifically expand upon how it is consistent or not with the master plan. That is the only thing the court weighed in on that specific issue.
I understand. Again, let me try to be even clearer in what I'm asking. I know the court sent it back to see if it was consistent with the master plan.
They actually didn't send it even to this body. They only sent it to planning board. I think Corporation Counsel and the planning board of attorney have said that we should also send it to city council, but you're not, if what I hear you saying is you want to consider potentially a different proposal.
No, what I'm saying is if we vote as a council, we will essentially be obliging to change it from one zone to another zone.
That already happened in December of 2020. You will be voting that the planning board reviewed the documentation and made sure that it expanded on its consistency. They already found it to be consistent. What the judge asked was to put on the record how all the specific reasons of consistency. That vote that you're talking about happened in December of 2020.
I think we're not having.
The judge, what you're saying, what you are implying is that the judge overturned the zoning.
No, I'm not implying that. Please do not misrepresent what I'm implying. If I would have thought that, I would have said that. So don't.
But then
we're not
voting on that again.
But what I'm saying is, by the vote of voting on in its current form, we will essentially be changing the zoning from the current residential at the height and density that's mandated by ordinance, changing it to something else.
That is
yes
correct.
or no?
No, that is correct. But
Thank you.
That also happened already in December of 2020. The judge did not say that vote was invalidated, is what my point is. That in December of 2020, that was decided. The judge did not invalidate that. So yes, you are correct. You would be saying that, but it was already also said in December of 2020.
So the zone's already changed, correct? Or we're reaffirming the planning board's findings? What's happening exactly?
Correct. So when it went back to, when it was remanded to the planning board at that hearing, those points were put on the record, and technically we have met the criteria by which the judge asked for at that meeting. But my understanding, I can't speak to this part, but my understanding is Corporation Counsel believes we should go a step further and put it back in front of you all again.
Why does the Corporation Counsel feel that? Why did you feel that?
Well, I think, number one, it's part of the entire process of adopting the entire plan includes adopting the findings of the planning board, which were, at the initial rate in December of 2020, the planning board said it is consistent with the master plan, but it did not have the explanation of why. Judge Delia demanded and remanded for the specific purpose that the planning board explain why it was consistent and in what ways. And they provided an exhaustive list of, I think, 18 reasons of how it was consistent with the master plan. And in order to incorporate everything back into the ordinance, it was deemed prudent to bring it back to the council to vote on that, because it's only the city council that ultimately makes changes to these ordinances and makes changes to the code. The planning board can't do that alone.
Okay.
So it was returned to the council to adopt those findings, bring everything into the plan as the whole, as we said, and that, again, that would be with the approval of the council.
Can I just
So
clarify?
Sean, if I, go ahead.
Go ahead, no, go ahead, Council
I was
President.
gonna say, if I got it right, then we can vote yes or no. That's what we gotta vote.
Of course,
And give
yes.
it back to the judge.
That's correct.
And I just wanted to clarify, but we as a council have the ability to, if we feel in ourselves to disagree with the planning board's recommendation or agree that's inconsistent with the master plan. And I know, at the hearing, there was obviously testimony in favor of that, and there was obviously folks representing the opposite view and saying it wasn't. I just want to clarify that that's something we can do, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So
Okay.
there would need to be a motion to remove it from the tabled agenda, and then we can go right to the vote, because we already held the public hearing on the ordinance.
Okay, all right.
Does voting no change the zone, or what is that? It's just in a limbo? Is it like in some purgatory area? Like, what happens?
Voting no would likely have the, we were the defendant, I mean.
Because you said we had the vote in
Yeah, so
December
I guess
2020.
the developer would probably then sue us for not properly carrying out the judge's order.
We'd be in contempt.
I don't know,
or-
actually.
I don't know.
can't speak, I'm not an attorney.
The law department.
Yeah, I think we will have a conclusive opinion by tomorrow on that question. I don't think I think the court bound the council, only bound the planning board to consider and place on the record. The court cannot bind the council to vote in a particular way. You always have your discretion to vote yes or no.
No, right, okay. The court can't make us. Correct?
So in this instance,
In this case, that's correct.
so the court is going to come back and tell us if the planning board's approval suffices or not, or it has to come through us.
No, the court would not come back unless someone brought it to the court. It would be in your hands.
Or what the impact of a no vote would be, right? Or is that what the court is coming back?
They don't know. Just vote.
All right, thank you. No more questions. I've harangued you enough.
Exhausting. Just vote on Wednesday, untable it and vote. Vote yes or no.
Just, if you don't mind staying up here, guys. So I did pull up the email from Matt. He said that the ordinance 22-024 was introduced it was the last night meeting. It was while I was sick. He said that it has to skip one meeting because the introduction referred it to the planning board. Does that make sense?
Okay,
So that's why we're going to carry it for
fine, no problem.
another meeting.
No
Okay.
problem, thank you.
That's fine.
So you carrying 4.7?
The 23rd, yes. Okay?
So, wait, one question, I'm sorry. I just want to be clear, right? Because since the judge didn't remand it back to the council, we're remanding it to the council strictly for, if I'm understanding right, cleanup purposes so the ordinance can be whole, but those changes are not necessarily substantial, or, I mean, maybe they are, but it's not changing what the current ordinance says, it's just adding more meat around it. If the planning board decided to move forward at this point, are they still well within their right to do so?
Right, that's correct. I think everything that was presented that came from the planning board to the council was explanatory. It elucidated what the plan was and how in this case, how it was consistent with the master plan. It does not change the metes and bounds of the plan itself, which was adopted in December of 2020.
No content or aspect of the ordinance, which is the plan, was changed. It was only the documents surrounding it and supporting it.
Okay, so I just want to be clear, because I think what Councilman Gilmore is getting at is the council has the ability to, I guess, stop this from moving forward. That's more so of the question, right? And if we're saying that planning board can still move forward without this ordinance, then...
No, they cannot.
It-
They cannot.
Right. They have to have the
The governing body always has the final say
Okay.
in land use.
Okay. All right, Rich. Have a good meeting. Okay, Sean.
Alrighty. So there are only 4 speakers listed. Any questions or comments on the petitions and communications, items 6.1 through 6.15? Hearing none, Office of Communications, items 7.1 through 7.2. No report of directors. We have our claims, and we're moving right on to our resolutions. So items 10.1 and 2 were touched on earlier. 10.3 is a resolution, Resolution 22-181 is a resolution honoring the Women of the Moose 70th anniversary of Jersey City, Chapter 1291. Item 10.4, Resolution 22-182 is a resolution of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City celebrating March 31st as Transgender Day of Visibility. Items 10.5 through 10.16 were touched on earlier. Item 10.17 is a Resolution 22-195, resolution authorizing the renewal of a contract with AccuSure LLC as an extraordinary unspecifiable service to provide the City of Jersey City with insurance consulting services and to be the city's broker of record for obtaining and maintaining the city's medical benefits, prescription, and stop-loss insurance plans.
Sean, we'd like to pull that one.
We did that one?
We'd like to pull that from the agenda. We're going to pull that from the agenda.
We're going to pull it? I'm going to withdraw. Okay. That will be withdrawn. Thank you, Barker. Sorry about that. I couldn't hear you. Item 10.18 was touched on earlier. Item 10.19, Resolution 22-197 is a resolution authorizing the payment of a claim submitted by Royal Printing Services for services rendered during the 2021 municipal election. So, council members, this is my resolution from my office. This is our printer who we use for printing the ballots for the municipal election and the runoff. So these were items, services rendered during 2021. So in order for us to pay them this year, this is the way we have to move forward with it. Items 10.20 through 10.23 were touched on earlier. Item 10.24, Resolution 22-202, is a resolution authorizing the City of Jersey City's Office of Cultural Affairs to accept the 2022 Hudson County History Partnership Program Grant Award from the County of Hudson Office of Cultural Affairs and Heritage Affairs and Tourism Development. Item 10.25 was touched on earlier, as was 26 and 27 and 28. Item 10.29, Resolution 22-207 is a resolution authorizing liens against properties listed herein, the cost of removing from properties brush, weeds, dead and dying trees, stumps, roots, noxious growths, filth, garbage, litter, and debris in accordance with NJSA 40:48-2.14 and the Jersey City Code Section 287-4. Item 10.30, Resolution 22-208, is a resolution authorizing the City of Jersey City to execute an identification agreement identifying the Department of Environmental Protection, Division of Parks and Forestry, and Liberty State Park in connection with the city's use of Liberty State Park. Items 10.31 through 33 were touched on earlier. Item 10.34, Resolution 22-212, is a resolution renewing the professional service agreement with Goldberg, Mackler, Soleil, Mintz, Pfeiffer, Bachny, and Gill as special counsel to represent the City of Jersey City in various pending foreclosure matters.
Counsel, if you have any questions, we can submit anything to you before the next meeting with respect to these professional service contracts.
We can't hear you.
With respect to these professional service contracts that's coming up, if you have any questions, we can submit something to you before the meeting.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Item 10.35, Resolution 22-213 is a resolution renewing the professional service agreement with the law firm Hunt, Hamlin, and Ridley to represent from Police Sergeant John Ransom in the matter of Riddell Pruitt versus the City of Jersey City. Say that again? Yep, you know what? That's a good catch. Thank you, councilperson. I will make sure that's corrected. If the resolution is wrong, I'll make sure that's corrected as well. Thank you. Item 10.36, Resolution 22-214, is a resolution renewing the award of professional service agreement with Brock Elker, LLC, to represent Director of Public Safety James Shea in the matter of David Goldridge versus the City of Jersey City. Item 10.37, Resolution 22-215, is a resolution renewing professional service agreement with Renaud, Conklin, and Michello to represent the City of Jersey City in various arbitrations. Item 10.38, Resolution 22-216, is a resolution renewing professional service agreement with Brock Elker to represent Kip Smith, Shella Lane, Gerardo Coppola in the matter of Terry Reynolds and Lorraine Oliver versus the City of Jersey City. And item 10.39, Resolution 22-217, is a resolution of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City authorizing the submission and acceptance of an application to the New Jersey Urban Enterprise Zone Authority for Enterprise Zone Assistance Funds for the fiscal year 2022 UEZ administrative budget.
Is this just accepting or submitting the application? It's not accepting the funds, correct? Or what's happening here?
It's both, Councilman. So we've been informed by the state that these funds will be made available. Florence is here to talk about the exact details of the amounts that are budgeted, but this item and the item following 10.40 are both related to UEZ and both related to both the submission of and acceptance of those funds, if approved, when we submit the budgets.
Hi, good evening. Florence Barron, Development Director, Jersey City Economic Development. So I'm here to answer any questions regarding the Urban Enterprise Zone. The Urban Enterprise Zone, just to give you a little brief, after 11 years, UEZ funds have been reinstated for Jersey City. Jersey City is of 37 municipalities that receive zone assistance funds. And the zone assistance funds sit with the state treasurer, and we have to apply for those funds.
Can we expand UEZ areas? And also, what are we using the UEZ funds for?
The UEZ administrative budget is to get us started. We will have to prepare and submit a 5-year strategic plan. When we do the 5-year strategic plan, we could also modify the urban enterprise zone boundaries. You can't, whatever you add, something has to come out. So it's modification.
So you can't extend, like, let's say onto a new street, like Summit Avenue to...
Something else has to come out.
Okay. And what have we typically used UEZ funds for?
We use it for, we've done streetscapes, block fronts, facade grants, support the SIDs. We have done CCTV. UEZ funds were used a majority for the establishment of CCTV and the maintenance, safety, beautification, events, all those things you could use UEZ funds for.
Is there a reason why it doesn't go through the police department, the CCTV? Because I think that, wouldn't they be like two different systems? And also, it should go through the police department, right? Or
We're doing the off-duty police program.
It's not mutually exclusive, Councilman, so a portion of that does go through OEM, for example, or public safety. This is just an additional amount of funds that can be used for the same purpose. So Resolution 10, Item 10.40, for example, is providing a budget specifically for the safety aspect that we're going to use the UEZ funds for. And so that's for funding, enforcement in specific SID areas where it's needed, for example. And then additional funds would be used for the types of activities that Florence mentioned, whether it's streetscape projects, beautification, facade improvements, et cetera.
So a quick, maybe clarifying question as it pertains to these two ordinances. So the first is for the application for the funding very excited that's coming back from the state. So with the off-duty program, was that culled from some of the requests that SIDs sent over to you all when you guys did the survey with them a couple months ago?
Yes, in the fall, we met with all 7 SIDs to get like a wish list of their needs. And again, off-duty patrol was 6 out of the 7, their top priority was off-duty patrol for safety, beautification, streetscape facades.
I would love for that to pay for the off-duty program instead of it coming out of the SID budget. So that's great, for West Side specifically, but thank you.
And
Can we-
just for clarification, these are caps. These are like, you only could do 10% for admin, public safety, 25%. Even after this, there'll be around roughly $2 million still in UEZ funds that we'll be preparing proposals for.
Wait, so why doesn't the off-duty assignments go through public safety, the public safety budget? Why does it have to go through the UEZ, or is UEZ?
There's a public service, municipal services component of UEZ, and that's capped at 25%.
It doesn't have to go through the UEZ, but again, it's just because this amount of funding is available and there's an allocation that says 25% of the funds that have been allocated to Jersey City, for example, or, you know, across the state, 25% of the funds that have been allocated to each municipality can go towards this program. So we're taking advantage
Okay.
of out the amount that we can use for this.
Just because there's like over 900 officers in the city, and we keep having units, police units taken from the north and sent to the south. And, you know, we would prefer to keep as many units as possible here because not only is there are a lot of issues up in the north, but I don't think they have the manpower to address these issues, and we don't have the manpower to send out plainclothes officers, which I hope, if this is instituted, that we do get that in the Heights. We have a lot of catalytic converter thefts. We've had some break-ins, but I guess this would be just for the shopping or the UEZ
Commercial
district.
UEZ commercial districts. And we'll work closely with the Public Safety Department on where they should be located with the off-duty patrol and how they will report back to us.
We've had vandalism in our lots, you know, like on Central Avenue, so, you know, we'd appreciate that.
Understood. And the way we're framing it and coming up with this budget is that different areas, even within the UEZ zones in Jersey City, will have different types of need for the off-duty police or for enforcement. So some SIDs have a need for continuous presence every day of the week, whereas certain ones have a need during the days of the week or times that they're the most popular. Downtown, for example, would have a need for like Thursday, Friday, Saturday evening specifically, whereas other areas need it around the clock. So we're taking that into account when we frame this for the use of the funds.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Thank you, Counsel.
Any questions?
Can I ask the administration? So these are just two items I just wanted to bring up to the administration and to law, sort of joint. The first was one that I'd sent to law individually already, but just wanted to ask for an update because it applies to the whole council. Do you guys have an update on when the new ward maps either go into effect or when are they in effect already?
Councilman, I want that answer for you tomorrow. I apologize.
Okay, no worries. I want to understand. And the second question, which is I haven't yet asked, so I don't expect you to have an answer now, but for the administration law, could you give us an update on the status of the department directors? I know we haven't seen the appointments coming to this council except for Metro and Kearse. And wanted to ask, do we need temporary appointments or do we need full appointments? Are they intended to come soon? Can you just give us like the legal update on where all that stands?
Yeah, I'm not sure when the directors will be represented to the council. However, the directors who have not been reappointed do continue to serve in a carryover status. So at that time, there's no need for worry about any vacancies in any of the directors' roles because the law is very clear that the directors will continue to hold their position until a replacement is appointed and approved.
And is there a time limit on that, or is that indefinite according to law?
There is no time limit.
Okay.
So the council could remove, though, if if there's some type of,
Right, under the normal removal process set forth in the Faulkner Act, yes.
oh, okay. All right, that's it, Sean.
Okay, the other resolution was touched on, so without anything else, may I have a motion to adjourn at 6:20 PM?
Motion.
Motion was made by Councilperson Saleh. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilperson Prince Airy. On the motion to adjourn, Councilperson Ridley. Councilperson Prince Airy.
Aye.
Councilperson Baggiano.
He stepped away.
He left.
Okay. Councilperson Saleh.
Aye.
Councilperson Solomon.
Aye.
Councilperson Gilmore. Councilperson DeGise.
Aye.
Councilperson Rivera stepped out. And Council President Waterman.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 with council members Baggiano and Rivera absent. Thank you so much, City Council President and members of the council, members of the professional staff, all the department directors, division directors that showed up. Teamwork makes the dream work. Have a great night. Stay safe.